Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt. Heat! Move! Do I make you horny?
Baby! The other monkey! What are you doing in my swamp?
Alright, you're going the right way for a smack bottom.
Look, I'm a cat that can talk. There should be enough for you people. Get off my tent!
I think there's somebody who was like it. It's been the hardest working band in the business.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to, I'm going to call this the third season of the Dystopian Dance Party podcast. We never called them seasons before, but I'm retroactively changing them into seasons because apparently we just can't handle doing a sustained we need to take year-long breaks every 10 episodes or so.
Well, it's not planned.
Right. Yeah.
It's just,
yeah.
I feel like we have like the seasons are the time when we're not recording, and then we occasionally have like a time when we record like 3, and then we just go back on hiatus.
Right. We're mostly on hiatus. So yeah, it's been a year. I'm Zach, and this is Callie, by the way, in case you forgot. It's been a year. Almost a year. And the nice thing about the pandemic is we don't have to really catch up on what we've been doing because we haven't been doing fucking anything. Nobody has. At least you shouldn't be doing anything.
I've actually been doing, I recently finally started landscaping my Nook's Cranny in Animal Crossing. And I'm getting that because I spent the first 6 months just, getting money together, and now I'm finally actually doing what people have been doing for the last 5 months, which is making their island presentable. So
yeah, I was gonna say, it took me this long. Like, we've had conversations about bringing back the podcast. Obviously, we took Jerry Curl June off, and we addressed that on the website. But even before that, we talked about doing another book club episode. And
we're going to do Little Richard's book, right?
Yeah,
that was the next
we actually had some really good ideas. I think we'll still do it after our next year-long break. But I would say the first 3 months of the pandemic, I could not do anything. At first, all I could do was watch TV. So I fucking mainlined Tiger King.
Yeah.
And then all I could do was play Animal Crossing. And then I got really into the Final Fantasy VII remake. And so I was just playing video games for a solid 2 months. And then I started feeling creative again, but it was not, but I was concentrating on my other project that people actually care about. So this one got the short end of the stick, but now we're back, and it's a little bit different. We've never really had a theme before, but we actually have a concept this time for this whole season. The next year of Dystopian Dance Party is going to be a deep dive into the cinematic of Michael Myers, Mike Myers, not the Halloween villain, but the Canadian comic actor. So I think probably the first question a lot of people have is why, and that's a little bit of a long story in and of itself. So we're going to spend this first episode just talking about what this idea is and also giving some background. I did some very extensive research for the first time in Dystopian Dance Party history. I did some very extensive, or at least in the podcast history, I did some very extensive research and notes. So this is a watershed moment in my career as a podcaster. But so to answer the question of why, I'm gonna start with when I got the idea.
Well, this has been over a year in the making, because I'm looking at the Dystopian Dance Party Instagram, and we started doing the mic drops on May 9th, 2019. So that was over a year ago. And then it's funny because we have a picture of Brenda from Vanity 6.
Right.
5 mic drops. So 5 business days of Mike Myers pictures, and then start on Jerry Curl June in June, and that nothing was said about them. They're just presented without comment. It just says hashtag mic drop, and then and the mic drops, for anyone who's not aware, is literally just like a random picture of Mike Myers that we were using to like secretly promote the podcast
that we didn't end up doing.
Yeah, we never ended up doing it.
Yeah, and hopefully, if I got my shit together, I will have started doing that again. So you'll be there will have been a second round of mic drops that I'm going to start doing.
More mic drops to come.
But that was my viral marketing idea that I quickly abandoned. So to start with, so in May 2019, feels like an eternity ago. If you can imagine what it was like in May 2019, I think where I got this idea was I've probably mentioned before, I have a son who just turned 8. He was 7 at the time. And he found the 2000 Cat in the Hat starring Mike Myers. He found it on Netflix, and you know how kids will just get fixated on a movie and just watch it over and over again. That happened. And in the Netflix era, he wakes up at an ungodly hour and he'll turn the TV on, and he gets to choose. He has a kid's profile, and he has shows that he watches, and he got into Cat in the Hat, and I watched it with him multiple times. And I had always had like a morbid fascination with the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat, just because look at it. Like, I remember when it came out, I was just like, he is the Mike Myers face in Cat in the Hat makeup is just one of the most disturbing images. Well,
we never saw it when it came out. I think we were both kind of older, but I was still old enough to be watching Nickelodeon, and I would still watch Nickelodeon all day when it came out, and so that was heavily advertised. And so I just remember the commercials.
Right.
I never saw the film until last year, but I remember the commercials, and I remember like being like, "Oh my God, that looks horrible."
Right. Yeah, like, how did that get made? And this is in a post Jim Carrey Grinch universe.
Right.
And even Jim Carrey's Grinch, like, our family went to see that in the movie theater. So it's not like we were above Jim Carrey as the Grinch. It was specifically Mike Myers as the Cat in the Hat that tipped into, ghoulish territory.
I know that we went to see it, but I don't think anybody ended up liking it, though.
We also hated it. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, so there is that. We are snobs about it. However, like, there's a big jump from Jim Carrey as the Grinch to Mike Myers as the Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, it's like they tried to make it the same thing, but it's like everything about the movie, it's just fucked up. And so I was watching it, over and over again, and I realized, like, because one thing about us is that we love an endurance test. A pop culture endurance test. We've read all 4 Kiss biographies. I did a couple of full discography Kiss listen throughs. When I do something, I like to do it all the way. And at some point, I had this seed of an idea, like, what if we watch Mike Myers' entire cinematic? Like, my original plan was honestly much more ambitious than what we're doing now, because my original plan was to go to Mike Myers' IMDb page and start at the beginning, which we'll talk about. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about what we would have watched if we had gone through with this insane idea.
I'd also like to say that was your idea, and I almost immediately put the kibosh to it, because I'm like, I'm not fucking watching all that. Let's do 12.
Well, this is one of the reasons why we didn't do it for a year, because I had this insane idea, and you were definitely not as on board with it as I was, and then we kind of we workshopped it a little bit.
I was on board with watching the feature films, but I can't, like, I don't think you realize, like, it sounds, and that's what I was thinking about today too, and when I was watching Wayne's World as well, which will be the first film that we end up reviewing, is that, like, at the beginning, it's gonna be fun, because right. What are the first couple of movies? Wayne's World, So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Yeah, which is like
Wayne's
not
World
great,
2.
but it's fine.
Yeah, Wayne's World 2, and then the first Austin Powers, which are all like, they're just stupid comedy films from the 90s and early 2000s or whatever. Or I guess just the 90s. But then after that, we have the rest of the 3 Austin Powers movies?
Yeah, it is a steep downshift. Yeah.
All 4 Shreks that we have to watch. The Cat in the
Which
Hat
I've only
again.
seen the first 2. I've only ever seen the first 2 Shreks because Remy, despite being a huge Cat in the Hat fan, is ironically not a Shrek guy. He's never been into Shrek.
And then ending with the Love Guru.
Yeah,
So
I mean that's gonna be.
It's gonna go downhill very quickly. Like
that
we'll
might
get
be
a good.
the end of our lives. I think we might actually blow our brains out at the end.
We'll get a good like half a year, and then like the rest of this year is just gonna be garbage.
So that's how. I guess I haven't answered the question of why. I answered the question of how. That's how we got the idea, and that's why it was put on hold for a year. And then, I feel like you actually brought it up again because you had started listening to the worst idea of all time.
Yeah.
And it was like,
this is what we do. We come up with an idea, do a podcast on it, and then we find someone else doing a similar but better, more successful podcast, and then that influences us to get back into doing the podcast that no one gives a fuck about.
Exactly.
So I was like, they're doing this, and they're not super polished. They don't edit their podcast barely at all. So I'm like, we can do this again. And I actually feel like all I do right now, anyways, other than working, is I watch movies and play video. So I'm like, I might as well do something even like somewhat productive with it. It's not totally productive because again, I'm not making money off of this, but it's at least a little bit of a creative outlet.
If anybody wants to pay us money to watch a bunch of Mike Myers movies for a year, I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to turn. No. I'm not above taking money for this, but we can talk about that. I think the pandemic sort of plays a role in this also because it's like how much worse can our lives get if there's ever a time?
Well, we haven't gotten to the Love Guru again, like I said.
Yeah, this is going to put it to the test. Yeah, we're going to find out what rock bottom really.
Yeah,
like.
I've never seen the Love Guru, so.
Oh God, I have, and let me tell you, it is not the critical the critical consensus is not wrong.
I remember because we had talked about this in May, and then I can't remember when the Love Guru got put on Netflix, but it was sometime. I feel like it was sometime after the pandemic started, so it was sometime this year. And I texted you at 3 a.m. It was I just said the Love Guru is on Netflix. Respond until 8 p.m. the next day, and we're like, the fact that you sent this at 3 a.m.
Yeah. It says so much about our. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to instate therapist check-ins. I think I'm gonna every time it's time to record an episode, I'm gonna get a note from my therapist that it's okay for me to proceed.
I lost my healthcare when the pandemic started, which is really convenient. So I haven't been able to see my therapist for literally months. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes.
So this is going to be a controlled experiment. I'm the control.
I ask my neighbors to check on me every once in a while.
Okay, so back to why, because I mean, there's the endurance test thing, but why Mike Myers specifically? And there's something, I think there's a few things, because I also don't want to make this a just shitting on Mike Myers for a year, even though that's inevitably what it's going to turn into.
Well,
but I grew up mostly in the 90s. I'm very much, I was born in 84. So Wayne's World came out when I was 8. Austin Powers came out when I was 13. So that's prime Austin Powers time. So Mike Myers was a huge part of my adolescence, he was I was a legit fan of Mike Myers. So I was all on board and totally into,
even mine too, because obviously I grew up watching Wayne's World and Austin Powers and stuff, mainly because, I mean, I guess by the time I was old enough to see Austin Powers, there's like, I think Goldmember was out in 2002.
Yeah.
So like that was still, Goldmember sucks to me, but it's still to many, it's a viable Austin Powers.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because by the time Goldmember came out in what, like 2003, I think?
2002.
2002. Okay, so I was 18. So that was like, again, the age lined up perfectly where for me, as an 18-year-old, somebody who was going into college and was, sort of pretentious. I remember, I loved the first Austin Powers. I loved the second Austin Powers because I was still, I no longer love the second Austin Powers. But at the time, when I was 15 years old, it was my shit. And then I saw the third one in the theater because I was like, I love Austin Powers. And I experienced in real time the decline of Mike Myers as a viable comic voice. It was like, oh my God, this is bad. And are all of his other movies bad? Like, is it like, it was so bad that it made you retroactively wonder if the first Austin Powers also just sucked ass. Like that was.
And I feel like, you were older at the time, but when Shrek came out, it was 2001. So I was in like 5th grade. When the first couple of Shreks came out. And the first 2 Shreks, I don't really like Shrek anymore, but when I was a kid, they were like fine movies.
Yeah, they were like solid family movies. Yeah, it was like they were family movies that you could go to as an adult and not want to shoot up the audience and turn the gun on yourself. Like that's which is high praise.
It just quickly went south. It's amazing how because by like the early 2000s to the mid 2000s, when the fuck did The Cat in the Hat come out?
I think that was 2000 or 2001.
Okay, but I guess like Shrek, even though he's the voice of Shrek, it's not like a Mike Myers.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess that's the difference. But like by the 2000s, it was already going downhill.
Yeah, and so I think that's part of it. I think one, in addition to loving endurance tests, I also love a sad decline. I'm a fan of those. Mike Myers was at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. He was like a comic genius. These were critically acclaimed. He was like going places. And especially when we talk about Wayne's World, that was a very like influential, and it's a great comedy. It's a great early 90s comedy. And his decline was so sharp. Goldmember I consider to be basically unwatchable. The Love Guru is definitely unwatchable. Cat in the Hat is weirdly watchable, but bad. The severity of the drop in quality is fascinating to me. It's like he's this like tragic figure. And then also, the other thing that I find fascinating about Mike Myers is he's famously kind of an asshole. And that's another thing that I really love, is like one of the most potent recipes for comedy for me is somebody just being completely intolerable about art that does not justify the behavior. And there's just the funniest image in the world to me is Mike Myers in his Cat in the Hat costume, like all of that makeup, being an absolute monster to the rest of the cast and crew, which is it's a thing that you can read about. There are behind the scenes reports of his bad behavior on set, on any film, but specifically The Cat in the Hat, that is just so funny to me.
Well, you look at a movie like that, and it's funny because when you watch it, like, it's supposed to be like a fun, family-friendly movie, but you can sense like a darkness to it, and just
he's miserable. He's miserable. The whole movie. He hates the movie. He hates he's contemptuous of the audience. He probably is feeling self-loathing. I mean, I don't want to pile on Mike Myers because I know that he also suffers from depression, so I don't want to just be like, look at this prick. We all have different ways that we channel our mental health, our emotional struggles. We're all on our own journey. Again, I'm not trying to make a hit piece for Mike Myers. I'm just saying that the spectacle of a fully middle-aged man in Cat in the Hat makeup, sometimes combined with drag, sniping and being rude to the cast and crew of the film is funnier than honestly any Mike Myers film, including the classic early material. So. So I don't know if that really answers why, because I mean, the other answer is just like, why do we do anything?
Well, I think it's also convenient because there are 12 movies that we can go off of. It's a nice, convenient timeline. Like, we can just do a movie a month. Exactly. It'll be a year, and that's like a viable like timeline to go by.
Exactly. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the parameters of this project. As I mentioned, my original plan. So Mike Myers has a 55 credits as an actor on IMDb, beginning with his child acting on Canadian television, which, by the way, some of it is on YouTube, but not very much. So that was kind of one of the early roadblocks that I faced in this project, because I was like, I wanted us to watch. So we're going to get into this, but he has an uncredited role in the 1985 TV movie John and Yoko: A Love Story as a delivery boy. I wanted us to watch the entire movie and evaluate it as a Mike Myers film. Which is conceptually, at least to me, is a funny idea, but it's probably not practical. Okay, so the 55 film thing quickly was rejected. So my second idea was movies that Mike Myers is on the poster, which I think gets us down to 15 or so.
But then I was looking at the Wikipedia page, and we would have to like 54. I was kind of on board with, because he plays Steve Rubell, who's obviously one of the owners of Studio 54. But then there's like a bunch of other ones that I'm like, I'm not watching these. I'm not.
We might still have to do 54 as like a bonus episode, because that was Mike's entree into dramatic acting. Right. That was like a big deal at the time. And he did that right after Austin Powers, which is,
I am interested in seeing that. And then there was another one that I can't even find right now that I was like, no, I'm not doing. He is on the poster, but I refuse. And then, I haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody. That was his most recent.
That's another one. He's in one scene. He's in one scene of Inglourious Bastards.
Right.
So,
and he's also, this is funny. He is in a movie called Terminal, which came out in 2018, same year as Bohemian Rhapsody. But when I read that, I thought it was The Terminal with Tom Hanks. And I was like, he's in the fucking Terminal? And then I looked at it and I was like, oh no, that's a completely different movie.
Yeah. So we made some cuts. For once, we're making decisions to actually make the things that we do kind of palatable. So yeah, we narrowed it down to 12 movies, and these are like solid Mike Myers vehicles. Like he's not just on the poster. His name is over the title in the credits. So we've got Wayne's World 1992. That's number one. So I Married an Axe Murderer is number 2 from 93. Wayne's World 2, also from 93, will be the third film. Number 4, Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery from 97. Number 5, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me from 99. Number 6, Shrek from 2001. Okay, I was wrong. I'm now seeing, as I actually go through his filmography, that Cat in the Hat. This was not part of my extensive research, so I see Cat in the Hat actually came a little later. So Shrek from 2001.
2003, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Austin Powers and Goldmember.
2000 was when he was sued because he didn't want to do a film on the character Dieter from the German character, and then ended up, as a result of that, doing the Cat in the Hat. So,
right. Which I like. You can't argue that a Sprockets movie wouldn't have been a better timeline than Cat in the Hat. Even if it sucked, I feel like Dieter is a much better character. Anyway, I digress. We'll get there. Right. We'll definitely get there. So Austin Powers and Goldmember is number 7. Number 8 is now the Cat in the Hat. We get to the Cat in the Hat. Number 9, Shrek 2. So basically from here on, it's a lot of Shrek, because number 10 is Shrek the Third. So we got 2 Shreks in a row. That's going to be rough. Number 11, The Love Guru. And then we're closing again on Shrek with number 12, Shrek Forever After. So this time next year,
we're not doing Shrek the Halls and Scared Shrekless. There's no fucking way I'm doing this. I've never watched them.
We'll do a bonus episode on the Shrek shorts.
Okay, this is off topic, but do you remember that horrible Shrek on Broadway or whatever? with that awful song where they were like burping in each other's faces and Shrek was like smelling it and it was like weirdly sexual and disgusting.
You know, one good thing. So. Yeah, that's one good. We talked about his decline, but I think one nice thing we can say about Mike Myers is that he was not in the Broadway production of Shrek. And maybe, who knows, since we're stretching this out over a full year, maybe we'll know more about the upcoming projects. Untitled Mike Myers Netflix project, which is currently in pre-production, according to IMDb, and Austin Powers 4, which Austin Powers 4 might be what puts me over the edge.
Honestly, I'm going to call it right now. I think it's going to be the Love Group for me. I don't know how I'm going to fare with the Love Group. Because it's like, you think, I mean, we'll get to more of this when we get to the Love Group, but you think, oh, it's just like a goofy comedy with Mike Myers. He is playing like a really racist depiction of an Indian man. Yeah,
it's incredibly racist. Yeah, it's just...
Isn't Justin Timberlake in it too?
Justin Timberlake is in it. Yeah, it is dire. Even if it had come from somebody. So that's another thing. This is something that I was thinking about. So like, you know, Adam Sandler also has a bunch of shitty movies, you know, and he's kind of a contemporary of Mike Myers. But like Adam Sandler, I don't find as fascinating or tragic a figure as Mike Myers, because Adam Sandler's movies suck because he doesn't give a shit. You know, like he famously makes these movies so that him and his friends can go to like a resort and hang out for a couple of weeks every year or so. You know, it's like a vacation for him. Mike Myers is like a tortured. He like really. He alienates people. He slaves over projects. He really like puts himself out there for movies that have gotten increasingly embarrassing over time, and that kind of personality doesn't come along often. And so I think that's something worth celebrating.
This is somewhat off topic too, but do you remember when he was on the Gong Show and he was playing like a fictional person?
Yeah, I never actually watched that. I might have to.
I saw parts of it, but
myself.
Right, I was gonna say I feel like that's something we should touch on. Obviously, we shouldn't make that a focal point, but I was always kind of interested in watching that because it's so bizarre. It's kind of an interesting idea.
Right, it's also really honestly. Seems more like something Martin Short would do. Like it feels very Jiminy.
Right. Yeah.
And he's been doing that a lot. Like I think he's also been making, you know, he's not super active, but when he does make an appearance, it's often in some kind of getup. You know, he's like in character as someone, and like he looks bizarre. Did you see Bohemian Rhapsody? You said you didn't, right?
No, I haven't.
He looks bizarre in Bohemian Rhapsody. He's wearing this like curly wig and like a fake beard. And he's putting on an English accent, like he's almost always playing English characters now.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not just going to shit on Mike Myers for a year because I still have a lot of affection for him. And honestly, Mike, if you're out there and you're listening and you want to join us in a future episode, I'd be happy to, unless you yell at us, in which case I rescind my invitation.
I don't mind being yelled at by Mike Myers.
Honestly,
I was in a customer service job and get yelled at all day. I would rather be yelled at by Mike Myers, to be honest with you.
That's a great way of looking at it. To be that's that. I never mind. Mike, if you wanna come on here and yell at us and just really give it to us, our door is always open. We will always make. If you want to do it in character as Shrek or Austin Powers, I'd be totally fine with that. So those are going to be our 12 main, you know, we're zeroing in on these 12 films, but I do think I want to bring in some of that sweeping, you know, context. So we're not going to do a full episode on the Gong Show, but I think we should talk about it as a significant moment in Mike Myers' development. And so that's kind of what I want to spend the rest of this episode doing. Some of this biography, I lifted a lot of this from his Wikipedia page. I said it was extensive research. I didn't say it was solid research. But I pulled in a couple of other sources. Mike Myers, Michael John Myers, was born in Scarborough, Ontario. on May 25th, 1963, to English immigrant parents from the Old Swan area of Liverpool. His father, Eric Myers, was an insurance agent, while his mother, Alice Bunny E. Myers, née Hind, was an office supervisor and a veteran of the Royal Air Force. Mike Myers he's been performing since he was 2 years old. He did a commercial for Wrigley's when he was 8, which is actually on YouTube, and I'll link that in the show notes.
Hi, Joey.
Hi, Jack. What's some gum?
Candy flavor? Oh, it's Wrigley's.
Yeah.
Well, you graduated to the big stick.
Wrigley Spearmint.
Spearmint straight.
Yeah, straight, Jack.
The name's Ned, Joey.
Yeah, real straight.
He made a commercial when he was 10 for British Columbia Hydro, in which Gilda Radner played his mother. Unfortunately, I cannot find footage of that, but I did look for it. And then starting at age 12, he started making guest appearances on Canadian television. His first role was as the character Ari on an episode of the TV series King of Kensington, which is a Canadian sitcom starring Al Waxman, later of Cagney and Lacey, as Larry King. Not the Larry King that probably came to mind, but Larry King, a convenience store owner in Toronto's Kensington Market, who was known for helping friends and neighbors solve problems. That's how Wikipedia describes it. The show's gentle but politically conscious humor is seen by some critics as a Canadian version of the topical Norman Lear sitcoms of the 1970s, such as All in the Family and Maude. I did find some King of Kensington on YouTube, but not no Mike that I could find. When Mike was 14 in 1977, he co-starred in a Canadian TV special, and this is one that I really wanted to find, alongside David Ferry, who later had a role in both Boondock Saints movies, called Range Rider and the Calgary Kid. And this is a review. This is from a review by the user Milton Burrell 4857033 on IMDb. Two cowboy heroes discover a valley of dinosaurs in the Old West. Shot entirely in a TV studio, both are played by kids, Mike Myers and David Ferry, who ride on plastic prop horses, often in front of a chroma keyed background. The dinosaurs are small puppets that look as though they may have been cobbled together from toys or plastic model kits. Visible seams and joints with equally visible wires moving them. The sets are a small single stage with dressing that is moved around a little and a lot of miniatures that are of the quality of a roadside tourist trap diorama. A good diorama, but still not very scenic. Also, a store-bought electric train is featured. He says, very strange and obtuse programming. I suspect that only a very small child would find it interesting. But if you like weird stuff, then you won't be disappointed by this either. Both kids play it completely serious, as though they are adult desperados. So
I want to watch that too. That
I know.
amazing.
Unfortunately, I could not find it. If anybody out there has access to it, let me know. But in the meantime, thank you, Milton Burrell 4857033 for painting such a vivid picture. 2 years later, at 16, Mike was the guest star of season 1, episode 10, entitled Boy on Wheels of the TV series The Littlest Hobo. This is another very long-running Canadian TV series. It's been on in various incarnations since the 50s. I looked this up. It's apparently a Canadian institution. It's about a stray German shepherd, the titular hobo, who wanders from town to town helping people in need. And it says, on Wikipedia, it says, although the concept of a dog saving the day was perhaps similar to that of Lassie and or Rin Tin Tin, the littlest hobo's destiny was to befriend those who apparently needed help, portrayed by well-known actors and Mike Myers in celebrity guest appearance roles. Despite the attempts of the many people whom he helped to adopt him, he, this being Hobo, appeared to prefer to be on his own and would head off by himself at the end of each episode. So this episode is actually in full on YouTube. I want to point out that it also features Clarence Williams III, who was Link from the Mod Squad, and also, of course, Francis L., the kid's Prince's dad in Purple Rain. So if you've ever thought, what if Clarence Williams III and Mike Myers shared the screen? I have amazing news for you. It did happen in 1979. Here's a short synopsis from the YouTube channel, The Littlest Hobo 3. Hobo encourages a paraplegic boy to enter a frisbee throwing contest to the dismay of the youth's overly protective widowed father. who hates dogs because his driving at excessive speed and swerving to avoid a stray dog led to the car crash which killed his wife and left his son paralyzed. When Hobo saves the boy's life, the father finally sees the light. This episode also featured a young Mike Myers as the paralyzed boy's friend, Tommy, who is kind of, I watched a little bit of this before we started recording. He's kind of like, he's encouraging Tommy in his Frisbee interests, which the father, opposes. So Mike Myers is sort of a bad influence on this kid.
Hi, David. Got some more Frisbees Chris can have if you want.
Sure, Tommy, come on in.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Tommy.
Brought you some extra Frisbees.
Oh, thanks.
Finally, at age 17, we're starting to get into comedy roles now. Mike, he appeared on the Showtime variety show Bizarre as various characters, including Timmy Biner, the fictional son of host John Biner. According to a description of this show from Night Flight, the show was also noted for its use of coarse language and the appearance of busty, bare-breasted babes, and for featuring Super Dave Osborne's wacky daredevil stunts. So I'd heard of Super Dave Osborne. I can't say I'd ever heard of Bizarre, but that's apparently where he comes from. Graduated from Stephen Leacock Collegiate Institute in 1982, and at that point, Myers was accepted into the Second City Canadian Touring Company. Also around this time in 1983, he started appearing as a prototypical version of his character Wayne from Wayne's World on the City TV overnight show called City Limits, which eventually became the Much Music Network. And he continued to appear on the Much Music Network as Wayne was presented as the cousin of VJ Christopher Ward.
Hey, Chris! Come on, man! It's your cousin Wayne!
Wayne? Wayne? Wayne, is that you?
Wayne!
What are you doing?
Man. Chris! Hey, Chris Ward!
Hey, Wayne!
Oh, hi! How are you, man? Excellent!
I'm great. How you doing?
Party on!
What are you doing here?
Excellent, man!
Well, why don't you come on up?
Oh, yeah! Great!
Come on!
Fine, man! Excellent! Great!
Come on, you might as well. You're here now. I haven't seen you for what? How long? Like a year and a half or
At
something?
least a year and a half. And you were talking to me for a long time because I kept bumming money off you.
Yeah, well, I remember that fact.
I paid you back, man. I worked at Pizza, you remember?
Yeah. So
Paid
you still
back.
You still hanging out at Fairview?
You got it.
Oh, man.
I'm still going out with Nancy, too.
Nancy. All right.
She's excellent, man.
All right.
I wrote this tune for Bludgeon.
Bludgeon? Oh, your band. How's the band? My cousin Wayne. Sorry.
We're excellent.
I know. Yeah.
We are on the way. Hey, Ralph! It's me. It's my cousin. I told you, man. It's my cousin.
I'm really sorry about this.
It's Chris. We're like this. This one's me, man. We're on TV.
Yeah, I mean.
Right. Are you asleep?
Sorry, okay.
Wake Nancy up, man.
Which I just get
Nancy,
into
wake
the
her up.
videos as soon as I can.
Right.
I'll calm Wayne down. Okay.
Right. Sorry, man. Wake
all right.
her up, man.
All right, listen, Wayne.
I told you.
Yeah, you've been on television now.
It's interesting. This is actually, you can also watch, there's a best of Mike Myers on City Limits. It is interesting. He's like a definitely recognizably Wayne, but maybe a little more of like an authentic metalhead. One thing that I found
seemed kind of watered down to me, but I guess we'll get more into that. Like he's kind of just like a slacker.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This is more of a metalhead version. One thing that I loved is he's a big fan of Ted Nugent.
Which you get a little bit of that in Wayne's World, but
yeah, because he cites intensities in 10 cities, which like that's a deep cut, that. So I was like, well, this makes sense.
My Love is like a tire iron on it.
Yeah, it is.
It's like a tire iron is a great track. Great dick track.
So there's one of these clips. I think it's Christopher Ward gives him a Ted Nugent album as a present.
But listen, I have something here for you. It's a Ted Nugent cassette. You can take that with you.
Penetrator?
The Nuge, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
Chris.
yeah.
I told you, man. He's an excellent guy.
Yeah.
He's an excellent guy. This guy is
my cousin Wayne.
Thanks, man.
All right, no problem.
Great.
You know what? I like a little bit of 80s Ted Nugent. I'm not mad about it. So, but anyway, let's move on.
I really identify. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll save this for our Wayne's World episode. But also on this, in the highlight reel here, you can see that he debuted his Scottish character, which
I love that Scottish man character is just like that has existed since basically Mike Myers beginnings in comedy, and it just I guess it reached its I mean, I guess you could argue that it was Fat Bastard, but
right.
It became the Shrek voice.
Well, it became like a household. Yeah, like Fat Bastard, it was still a PG-13. Like so many people have seen Shrek. And yeah, this is something that he came up with in 1980. I mean, he didn't come up with the Scottish accent, but this character is very consistent.
All night music continues on City Limits. Christopher Ward here until 6 o'clock this morning. We have some tickets to...
You! Yeah, you!
Stuart, is there some problem?
Oh, is there some problem, is there?
Stuart, what's wrong? This is Stuart Cruden, who collects the change from the vending machines here at the station. What exactly is the problem here, Stuart?
34 cents.
What, you're short 34 cents?
I'm short 34 cents in that machine downstairs.
Oh, it just must have been a mix-up or something.
Oh, it just must have been a mix-up.
Look, this is easily handled. I
easily handled? I was up all night.
Worrying about 34 cents?
34 cents. You know what they'll do to me down at the station?
No, I hate to think.
They'll whip me within an inch of my life.
No, there's no way. It's not that serious.
Oh, it's not that serious, is it?
Well, no, don't get emotional.
I want you to come with me and have a look.
What, at the machine?
At the machine.
Oh, all right, so look, I'm just going to go... Excuse me, I'm going to take a look down the machine and see what the problem is here. So I can just sort of... Well, it's not me.
Oh, it's no use.
Oh, no, I see, I don't drink chicken soup. In fact, I was wondering, is there any chance we could get some fruit juice or something in here?
Now he's asking for requests.
Well,
look, I loved you. At one time I loved you, but seeing you steal 34 cents from me, I'll kill you.
It would come to that, wouldn't it?
It would!
Look, is there something I can do to appease you, Stuart?
I don't know.
Perhaps a little something on the show that just might cheer you up a bit?
Well, I'd like to see Claire Grogan.
Oh, from Altered Images?
Aye.
I've seen her picture hanging up in your locker.
Oh, she's a cute lass.
Yeah, she is, isn't she?
She is.
So why don't we show some Altered Images? Anything else while we're at it?
Big country?
Big country?
There's not enough Scots videos,
I know.
How many times have I told you? Scotland, Scotland, Scotland. It's the next place on the move.
Well, I would suspect so, yes. Scottish music is up and coming. We may have some Billy Connolly.
Billy Connolly! Come here. Billy, don't you worry about the 34 cents.
Okay,
Come on.
Okay. So,
Bay City Rollers?
Oh, I wouldn't want to go that
Sir Harry Lauder.
And it also kind of leads to one of the themes that I discovered in this research was I feel like Mike Myers, basically all of his ideas occurred in the mid 80s and that he just continued finding ways to use those ideas. So there's more evidence. So we've got Wayne, we've got the prototypical Scottish man / Fat Bastard / Shrek. And then there's more to come. So in 1985, he moved to the UK, was one of the founding members of the Comedy Store Players, an improvisational group based at the Comedy Store in London. That same year, he had, like I mentioned, the cameo as Delivery Boy, uncredited, in the TV John Yoko love story.
I wish that had been a character that had carried on through the contemporary days.
Who is it? Special delivery for John Lennon. Sign this, please. I've worn out your Imagine album. It's great. Thanks.
Yeah, Mike Myers, creator of classic characters, Dieter, Austin Powers, Delivery Boy. I honestly feel like, as somebody who grew up watching late 80s, early 90s Saturday Night Live, that was the era of Opera Man. So Delivery Boy could have been a Saturday Night Live character. The next year, still in the UK, Mike Myers was on the British children's TV program Wide Awake Club, parodying the show's normal exuberance with his own Sound Asleep Club in partnership with Neil Mullarkey, who actually shows up. That name will show up again. Neil Mullarkey co-wrote, I think, So I Married an Axe Murderer. And also, I realized this doing the research, he is the guy in the first Austin Powers who is like giving him, I don't know if this is as lodged in your psyche as it is for me, but the scene where he first gets unfrozen and the guy is giving him his like personal effects.
Oh yeah,
and
I remember that.
They're like increasingly embarrassing, like the Swedish penis enlarger. That's Neil Mullarkey.
Okay.
I did find a clip from Malarkey and Myers in 1985. It doesn't translate well to audio, but it's on YouTube, and I'll link it in the show notes. And it's it's very much a prototype of the disappearing behind the couch gag that Mike reused in both Wayne's World and Austin Powers. So again, all of his ideas came in the mid 80s, except apparently the Love Guru. So at least I haven't found evidence of a prototypical Love Guru yet. That seems to be his one new idea since the 90s.
And the Love Guru is basically just the Scottish man, but Indian.
That's true. It's just an accent. Actually, you know what? I take that back. The Austin Powers, he did come up. There's no Austin Powers in the 80s, but the couch gag he did develop in the 80s. In 86, he returned to Toronto and the Second City as a cast member of Second City Theatre. 87, he was on the CBC television music-themed sketch comedy series It's Only Rock and Roll, where he revived the Wayne character for a recurring segment called Wayne's Power Minute.
Hi, this is Wayne's Power Minute. All right, now we're going to look at parties. Party hardy! I want to know, when did party become a verb? Like, to party. We partied last night. Now, I think around 1972. Now, everybody has their own way of saying party. Like, my parents say party, and some people say partay, which is incredibly bogus. And some people say party, which is the right way to say it. Now, of course, there's political parties, like the Communist Party. I mean, what's that? Everyone shares one beer or vodka? Or the Conservative Party? Everyone goes home at 11 and no one gets drunk or pukes? Or the Liberal Party? Well, you get the general idea anyways. Now, I think a lot of the world's problems could be solved if we had one huge, major, humongous blowout. I mean, if we just go for it, you know what I mean? This is Wayne's Power Minute. All right!
Also on It's Only Rock and Roll was the debut of his Dieter character in a segment called Kurt and Dieter with another Second City actor named Dana Anderson.
It's me, Norm Peel. We're in Berlin on the Alvenstrasse, where we're in the apartment of electro-pop stars Dieter and Kurt from the German band League of Darwinists. Kurt, Dieter, it's a pleasure to meet you. You know, it's ironic. You're huge here in Europe, but in North America, you're virtually unknown. First of all, tell me, how did you meet?
Well, Kurt and I first met in an art college in Stuttgart during a textures course. I was touching styrofoam, Kurt was touching tapioca. We both met while we were touching monkeys. We like to touch monkeys. It is our hobby.
You're about to embark on your very first North American tour. You must be excited.
Yes, we are doing 25 cities in 11 days. We are backing up Ted Nugent.
What did he say now?
He goes mental for us in Nuge. Can I touch your eyebrows? They are most bizarre. Can I touch them?
Maybe another time.
Okay.
Tell me about some of your early performance art pieces.
Well, our best-known early work was Kunst und Zeitgeist, which is about the alienation of man in society and the role of the artisan in a bourgeois world. Kurt. Dieter. Kurt. Dieter. Kurt. Dieter. Kurt.
Now here's some more interesting stuff. 87, he appeared in Meet Julie, which was an animated holiday special, another one I really want to find, produced to promote the interactive talking Julie doll made by Worlds of Wonder. And from IMDb, here's the synopsis. Carol is a 9-year-old with a very special doll given to her by her father. Carol's father is the owner of a company that provides security services, and when he gets on assignment to guard an art exhibit at the Louvre, he takes Carol with him. During their transatlantic crossing, Carol falls overboard. This is the end of the synopsis.
What?
So either So either this is darkest.
I have the document open and I was reading it along with you. I hadn't read ahead, so that completely took me by surprise.
So this is either the darkest holiday special ever made, or I guess they didn't want to spoil us on this. Yeah, this is one that, again, if you have a copy of Meet Julie, let us know, because I definitely want to see that. The following year, he moved from Second City in Toronto to Chicago, where he trained, performed, and taught at the Improv Olympic, and appeared in 110 Lombard Street, a pilot for a Second City TV series in which he starred with Ryan Stiles from Whose Line Is It Anyway? And Bob Bainborough, and it also featured Dana Anderson, Bonnie Hunt, Linda Cash, Richard Kind, Jane Morris, Bruce Perry, Audrey Webb, and Mark Wilson. Finally, in 1989, he made a guest appearance as Cockney Man in the video short Elvis Stories, which starred Jeremy Piven and John Cusack, and was directed by Ben Stiller.
I had a Corky's Elvis party, and of course, I was sick. And the amazing thing is that the shape of the sick on the pavement was exactly in the shape of Graceland.
Well, that could have been the inception of Austin Powers, right?
Kind of.
Austin Powers is basically just a Cockney man.
Cockney man, yeah. And he got it in before the end of the 80s. So, yeah.
Here we go.
All of Mike Myers' ideas, except Shrek, came in the 80s.
and
no, I'm sorry, not Shrek, The Love Guru.
And like I said, The Love Guru is basically just the Scottish man, but with a different stereotype, one that's way more offensive.
Right.
So.
1989 was also, of course, the year that Mike joined the cast of Saturday Night Live. He appeared in 121 episodes between 1989 and 1995. Some of his notable characters, these are Wikipedia's idea of notable characters, so some of these are more notable than others. Dieter, host of Sprockets, Wayne Campbell, Linda Richmond, the hostess of Coffee Talk, Japanese game show host, another quite racist character. I remember seeing that in reruns. I'm not blaming it on, these were different times. I'm not blaming Mike Myers on this, but it's just interesting that in late 80s, early 90s, a white guy could still play a Japanese guy to, very little, if any, public outcry. He was the handsome actor Lank Thompson. He was Simon, a little boy who does drawings in the bath and complains about having prune hands. I don't know why that's the specific detail that they called out. He was one of the Bears guys, the Bill Sparsky's super fans. Pat Arnold was apparently his name. Stuart Rankin, proprietor of All Things Scottish, which I could not find a YouTube clip of this character, but I have to assume that it's the same fucking Scottish voice that he continues to do as Shrek. Lothar of the Hill People, Ed Miles, aka Middle-Aged Man. I remember. I couldn't find a video of this.
Middle-aged man.
He's literally a middle-aged man, an older man who helps young people with their problems. I mean, like I said, Delivery Boy would not be out of it would not be out of step with the early 90s SNL caliber of character development. He also played Philip, a child at the age of 6 who is hypoglycemic and hyperactive, and he's wearing a
lots of casual ableism and racism in all of these.
I vaguely remember this sketch because he's wearing a helmet and a harness. Shockingly, Philip did not get his own movie. Kenneth Rhys Evans, host of Theater Stories. And this one I don't remember, but I kind of want to see this one. Johnny Letter, an Old West citizen who writes polite, well-written letters of complaint. I feel
sounds
like
funny.
I almost...
That's other than Wayne, that's the only other one that I'm like, oh, that actually sounds kind of funny. Yeah. I could be completely wrong. One thing I've noticed about this list and just SNL throughout the years is they love to make their characters hosts of fictional shows.
Yeah,
that's like every fucking sketch is a different fictional show with some host. And
right.
I think the only times that was really successful was Wayne's World, and then I don't like Jimmy Fallon, but the Barry Gibb talk show was funny to me.
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Anyway, not Mike
I feel like
Myers
that's a like a real low hanging fruit.
Well, and also
SNL.
Jimmy Fallon was basically just a parody of Mike Myers, just like a new Mike Myers anyway. So
yeah, that is true. This was kind of, it feels weird to call it my era of Saturday Night Live because I don't actually think it was that much funnier. So there's something, this is tangentially related, but people like to argue that SNL was better when they were, growing up. Like they'll argue, some people, if they were watching it in the 70s, they'll argue that the original cast was the best, or, a lot of people argue for Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, like that whole batch in the late 80s, early 90s. Those are the two main ones, like the golden eras. But I honestly, as someone who's kind of dipped in and out of SNL for almost its whole history, I just feel like it's always been kind of funny and mostly not funny. Like it's been honestly remarkably consistent. I don't actually think I feel like
I don't think there was ever a golden age. I feel like people are nostalgic about it because I've seen clips from when it started, and like the 90s had Wayne's World. And so that, like you said, that would be the time where I'm like, oh, well, that's when I liked SNL. But then I actually watched a full show and I'm like, oh, this fucking sucked. It's not any different than it is now. There
might have been higher highs at some points, but I feel like the lows are basically, I think you can watch a show from now and a show from 10, 20, 30 years ago, and you'll probably laugh about as much. You just might laugh more when there was like a really great cast. Like the batting average might be a little better.
Right, and I feel like when they shot off and did movies, they were funnier during a certain period of time. Like now I can't really think of, they don't really make SNL like spin-off movies that I can think of.
Yeah, I'll have to look up what's the most, before we record Wayne's World, I'll have to look up what's the most recent one.
Yeah.
So that brings us to Wayne's World. Like this is setting up, this is Mike Myers, the moment where he kind of becomes this rising star on this cast that, whether you think it was the golden era or not, a lot of people this was an exciting time at Saturday Night Live because Mike Myers was there, Dana Carvey was there. There were a lot of these like young comic voices that were becoming these huge stars, and they start making movies. And this is Mike Myers' entree into filmmaking is through Wayne's World in 1992. That's where we're going to kick off our episode next week. We're not going to do these episodes weekly, other than this time. And maybe, if we end up doing like a bonus episode down the line or something, we might do. But mostly,
for the most part, they're going to be monthly, right? Yeah,
we're looking at one a month mostly. And just for the next year, it's 12 months of Mike. I don't know if that's what we're going to end up calling it, but that's the concept. And I don't know. I think it's a little bit different. I don't think we have I hope that our fan base will go along with it, because I do understand it's a departure. If you were looking forward to more Dystopian Book Club, we will do it at some point. But right now, this is something that I have to get out of my system.
And personally. I feel like it'll start off good because I feel like most of our fans are like metalheads, music people, so they might stick around for the two Wayne's World. I think that everyone will kind of peter off when it gets to about the same time when we'll like lose interest basically. Yeah. and will to live, which is in a couple months.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it'll be fun. We're kicking off with Wayne's World. So I Married an Axe Murderer is sort of vaguely Halloween themed.
I'm excited because there are a lot of movies on here that I've never seen. I've seen a lot of them because I was growing up in the era, or, like I recently saw Cat in the Hat because you told me to watch it. But a lot of them I haven't seen. So I'm actually excited to like watch more of his filmography.
Yeah. So yeah, this is what we're doing for the foreseeable future. I hope you come along with us. I think it'll be, when I started listening to Worst Idea of All Time, listening to people talk about movies that you have no intention of watching is surprisingly entertaining. Like
Especially
I will never.
when they're bad comedy movies. Like I feel like it's going to get funnier as they get worse because hearing someone describe The Cat in the Hat or The Love Guru who has never seen them is going to be completely bonkers. like how do you even describe that?
So yeah, thanks for listening, and come back next week. And if you have any thoughts to share about Mike Myers on SNL or about Wayne's World, again, we like to make this as interactive as possible. So send us something on Twitter at Dystopian Tweets, or post something in the comments on the website, and share your thoughts, and maybe we'll read them. If nothing else, it'll give us something to distract us from all of the Mike Myers movies that we're going to be watching in the next 12 months. So thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.
What
were those monkeys' names? What were those monkeys' names? They stood up straight and changed our fate. What were those monkeys' names?
You see, for us, the monkey is a most fitting metaphor. For if you take away the K for Kunst, which is German for art, you have money. Mm-hmm. You substitute the M for a D, you have donkey, which is what the capitalist society is like. Mm-hmm. Now, if you would... Well, you get the general idea.
Yeah.
Touch me.
Touch my monkey. We are optimists. We are monkeys.
One final question. Any plans for after the tour?
Some performance art. We like to go and dance.
Und die Aschminke.
What's he saying now?
And to touch monkeys.
We are optimists. We are monkeys. What were those monkeys' names? What were those monkeys' names? What were those monkeys' names? What were those monkeys' names?